Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to The Walk. Today is Thursday, September 14th, and today we are looking at the Pentecost that happens in Acts 2. Now, the interesting thing is, and I know that I've done this many times, I have read this passage so many times, but as I'm reading it today, one of the things that's really jumping out at me is the way I read the very first line, which is 6 words. When the day of Pentecost arrived. Now, before doing our study this week, I would have read that and thought to myself, okay, the day of Pentecost has arrived, and as a result, the Holy Spirit is coming. But now I'm reading it entirely different. Now I'm understanding better that Pentecost was a festival that was celebrated every single year. So it's like saying the day of Christmas arrived and she got a puppy. It's not that she got a puppy because it was the day of Christmas. It was that the puppy was the Christmas present. It's an annual celebration, and that happened to be her gift. So this day of Pentecost, when it says when the day of Pentecost arrived, Pentecost is a celebration that was happening every single year. Now that day had arrived, and look at what happens. Remember, Jesus told them to wait at the ascension. 10 days has gone by. They were all together in one place, and suddenly there came from heaven a sound like a mighty rushing wind, and it filled the entire house where they were sitting, and divided tongues as of fire appeared to them and rested on each one of them. And they were all filled with the Holy Spirit and began to speak in tongues as the Spirit gave them utterance. Now there were dwelling in Jerusalem Jews, devout men from every nation under heaven. At this sound, the multitude came together and were bewildered. We just talked about that. Now in my Fire Study Bible, I've got this amazing note about what it means to be filled with the Holy Spirit. So what does it mean that this outpouring of the Holy Spirit came, and what happens as a result? Well, it meant the beginning of God's fulfillment in Joel chapter 2, verses 28 and 29, to pour out his Spirit on all the people in the end times. Your young men will dream dreams, your old men will have visions. It's that promise that those dreams and visions and the empowerment of the Holy Spirit would come. So first of all, that has happened. Second, since that period in church history marked the beginning of the last day, everyone was now confronted with the decision to turn from their sinful, rebellious ways and surrender their lives to Christ by faith. Now, I know I've said this over and over again, but if you've never come to that point where you're choosing to follow Christ, be aware of the fact that if you're deciding to make a decision later, you have chosen not to follow Christ. You've chosen to put it off. We've got to make that decision to follow Christ. Thirdly, the disciples were clothed with power from on high. Where did that power come from? From that baptism of the Holy Spirit. That's where that power comes from. Fourth, the Holy Spirit revealed his nature and character as one who deeply desires and strives for the spiritual salvation of people of every nation. Now every nation can be in on this spiritual awakening and this baptism of the Holy Spirit. Fifthly, the disciples became ministers of the Spirit. Even Peter, who denied Christ out of fear, is now able to step up and fill that role as a minister for Christ. And lastly, through the baptism in the Spirit, Christians became heirs or successors to his earthly ministry. So Jesus established his earthly ministry, and because of the baptism of the Holy Spirit, the disciples are able to take it from there and spread the gospel throughout the world. And because of that, Jews and Gentiles alike were all able to become saved. So this was a huge moment. Yes, it was happening on a festival that was happening, that was celebrated on a yearly basis. But this particular Pentecost was special because the baptism of the Holy Spirit happened at this point. So as you go into your prayer closet, Let that really sink in how special it is to have that baptism of the Holy Spirit. Have a wonderful day. God bless, and keep walking the walk.